Hello, students. I know it's been a long while that you've been missing school, yet we have to continue with our studies. And to begin with, I would like to welcome you to this video uh, on which I've prepared a short explanation on the story A Horse and Two Goats by R.K. Narayan. So I hope you have your textbook with you because it will be convenient because I would be referring to some of the important points from your textbook itself. All right. So keep it ready before we begin our lesson for today. A Horse and Two Goats by R.K. Narayan, and his full name is Rashipuram Krishnaswamy Iyer Narayana Swami. All right. So here we have a picture of R.K. Narayan, a very handsome man as you see with a spec and a bright smile. So I believe the story would be very interesting for you. Now we have a short biography of who this author is. Now he's none other than an Indian writer and who has set up a very remarkable uh, space in the fictional South Indian writing, and which is given here in your screen out here, fictional South Indian town of Malgudi. So most of his stories are set in that particular place called Malgudi, which is a fictional place. And he has been a leading author of early Indian literature in English, along with two of the other Indian famous writers, such as Mulk Raj Anand and Raja Rao. So you have the date of his birth and the year of his death itself, and some of the uh, awards that he had won as Filmfare Award for Best Story Padma, and some of the highest civilian award like Padma Vibhushan. All right. The rest of the biography is given in your textbook in page number 51. Okay. So let's go ahead with the story A Horse and Two Goats by R.K. Narayan. So first of all, you have the characters out here. Now you have to be very uh, familiar with the character. The first character is the main protagonist, that is Munni, who is an old man. Then second character is Munni's wife. Then the foreigner here. The fourth character is the shopkeeper. Now, the theme of the story talks about poverty. It talks about communication and knowledge and ignorance. And the setting of the story is in a village called Kritam. Now, the title of the story is pretty apt. Now, you might be wondering, why is it not the name of the story is Munni, or why is it not the name of the story is something like a very familiar kind of a name related to the story. So you might be wondering, but the title of the story itself justifies, because the story deals actually with the miscommunication that happens between Munni, the protagonist of the story, and this foreigner out here. So the foreigner thinks actually here that Munni is the owner of the horse statue. Now this is what the story is about. Munni does not own the statue, but he usually often goes and sits underneath the statue under the shade when he looks after his goats grazing on the grasses. All right. So the foreigner thinks that he must be the owner of the statue. So this is where the miscommunication starts. So he thinks that Munni is the owner of the horse statue under which he was resting. And so therefore he tries to give him 100 rupee note to buy the statue. Munni accepts, of course, with the thought that he must be interested in buying the two goats and not the statue. Therefore, he gives him the 100 rupee note and he accepts it. So the miscommunication happens there itself. And it is because the reason is he does not understand English. Muni does not understand English, nor does the foreigner understand Tamil language. All right. So there is poverty, of course, because Muni is very, very poor. Once upon a time, he was very rich, but at present in the story, he's poor. Okay. So that the theme of that poverty applies here. Then the theme of miscommunication applies here. So please do not misunderstand theme here. It's communication means miscommunication. All right. There's communication gap out here. All right. So this is the confusion. All right. Because of the intention of buying the horse and Muni selling the two goats, thinking that the foreigner is interested in buying the two goats. So this is how it justifies the title. Now the third theme that it talks about is knowledge and ignorance. Now when we talk about the knowledge in context to the story, here we find that Muni does not have much knowledge because he's not educated, he's not literate, all right? He's completely ignorant about people outside, and he's a very innocent man. But when it comes to knowledge, he has at least a little bit knowledge about this horse statue, about its value. So this is what we will be discussing about. Okay, so this was it on the characters, the theme, and the setting of the story. And so to in a brief note, these are the key points. First, you have the description of the village Kritam. Then we will study about Muni's fortune, which have recently declined, okay, and the present state with his wife. And we will be talking about the shopkeeper and how he interacts with the foreigner, about the horse, then the cigarette, all those series of events takes place, actions takes place. Then the foreigner departing with his prize money by giving him 100 rupee note in exchange of the horse. And at the end of the story, what happens? Surprisingly, the goats returns home because of the fact that the foreigner does not actually buy the goat, but it is the statue. But since Muni was very much in a hurry to go back home to give the good news, he did not stay back to see if the foreigner had taken the goats with him. And also the fact that he was quite worried because the goats might follow him up to his house. So he had said earlier that only after I leave, you take you put the goats on your vehicle. All right, you load them on your vehicle. So that is why the goats returns home, because the goats were never taken anyway. Okay, so now you have a picture of the village Kritam. So the description of the village is already given in page number 52. If you have your textbook with you, you can open it. In page number 52, the first paragraph talks about a fictional village, but at the same time, it somehow makes you believe that there probably could be a village called Krita, because this is one of the unique technique that R.K. Narayan uses in most of his stories, and it actually familiarizes the readers also to perhaps imagine for a while that there must be place like this, like Malgudi, like Kritam, and so on. So the first paragraph says that out of the 700,000 village dotting the map of India, Kritam was probably one of the tiniest indicated on the district survey map by a microscopic dot. Okay? But its size did not prevent its giving itself the grandiose name Kritam, which meant, in Tamil language, it means coronet or crown. All right, because according to the name depicted in the text, meaning that it is a crown village. However, in the literal introduction and description of the village in the story, it is one of the smallest village, a tiniest dot. Okay, the village consisted of less than 30 houses, and only one of the house was built with brick and cement. It was painted with a brilliant yellow and blue all over with gorgeous carvings of gods and gargoyles. Now gargoyles are like conically carved human or with animatic face of figures, all right, on its balustrade, means on its railing. It was known as a big house. So that was only the one house that was known as a big house. The other houses distributed in 4 streets were generally of bamboo thatch. So that means most of the houses were very, very poor. There was only one house that had this grand kind of uh, building with yellow bricks and so on, and figures and so on. Straw, the other rest of the houses were made of bamboo thatch, straw, mud, and other unspecified material. So out of that village, Munni's village was the last house in the 4th street, beyond which stretched the fields. So it is said that Munni, in his prosperous days, once upon a time, okay, he was very prosperous, he was very rich, and he owned a flock of 40 sheep and goats, all right, and sallied forth every morning. He would march out every morning with his 40 sheep and goats, driving the flock to the highway a couple of miles away. So those were the days of Muni when he was rich once upon a time. And what would he do? He would sit on the pedestal of a clay statue of a horse while his cattle grazed around. And along with him, he would carry a crook. Now, what is a crook? It is it is a kind of an implement like a sickle, all right, sometimes which he use. It is fixed with an end of a bamboo pole that is given in a text, and snapped foliage from the avenue trees to feed his flock. He also gathered faggots. Now, what are faggots? Now, those are the kind of some sticks from the forest. He would gather them, all right, maybe to use it as a fuel for the fire, and dry sticks, bundle them and carry them home for fuel at sunset. So those were his activities that he would do, okay, when he was rich, right? So he does at present as well, but he did not have but at present in the story he does not have that much of sheep and goats. Okay, so this was the setting of the village, the description of the village. So here you have Munni in the picture, whose fortune has declined, and he is it is given as gradually unnoticed. Something must have happened which does not describe about how and in what condition or situation he had this decline of his fortune, and in what way he had become very poor. All right. So it is not mentioned, but that is the literal explanation to us that has been given, that it has gradually declined unnoticed. So here you find Muni taking millet. Okay, millet. So that is, they do not have any kind of nutritious food that they could afford. So whatever they could, they would just cook and have, all right, maybe a soup of millet or so. Okay, so the next picture here shows Munni's wife. Now in page number 52 itself, in the second paragraph, here it talks about his wife, what she does at home. His wife lights the domestic fire in the morning, boils water in a mud pot, and throws some handful of millet flour, adds some salt, and gives him his first nourishment for the day. Okay. So when he starts out, she would always put hand a packed lunch, all right? And it would be the same millet that was cooked in a little bowl, which he could swallow with a raw onion at midday. So those were his daily food. Okay. They did not have any other thing, no dal, no rice, nothing, only millet. So that is what is being shown in the picture. All right. So this is his daily chores. As I've talked earlier, he would take up some faggots, some gathered sticks here and there, and he would return back with his 2 goats every day at home, and come back and have the same kind of monotonous life with not much excitement, because nothing is said about the children, nor they are present in the story at all. And here in this picture, in page number 53, it is stated that Munni goes to the shopkeeper to get things on credit. Now, as being a poor person, he do not have money to buy. So usually he goes and gets things on credit from the shopkeeper. So on that particular day, his wife said that in page number 53, second paragraph, okay, if you are content with the drumstick leaves alone, I could boil and salt some for you. And here he says, oh, I am tired of eating those leaves. I have a craving to chew the drumstick out of sauce, I tell you. And that's where Munni tells him to get some things on credit from the shopkeeper. Like, for instance, here in page number 53, fourth paragraph, like dal, chili, curry leaves, mustard, coriander, gingerly oil, and one large potato. So all this stuff was a huge, costing a huge amount, okay, during those times, all right? So she says that their store is empty. She cannot make any other thing apart from only millet. So that is the reason why he goes to the shopkeeper with the expectation that perhaps even this time the shopkeeper would be generous enough to give him some of the food items that is needed in the house very, very badly. All right. And here we have a picture of the shopkeeper who, as you can see in the picture, he is, as he's demanding something, asking for something, he is pouring it out. All right. But at the same time, he refuses to lend him. Okay. Why? Because earlier he already had a credit which he had not paid, a credit of 5 rupees that has been mentioned in page number 54, second paragraph. All right. He says, if you could find 5 rupees and a quarter, you will have paid off an ancient debt. How much have you got now? And here he says that perhaps his daughter would send him some money because on the occasion of his birthday. And here the shopkeeper reminds him, just a week ago you had mentioned that you had a birthday and you had taken castor oil for your holy bath. All right. So even the other customer starts mocking at him, and 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 that actually disappoints him, and he feels very insulted. He comes back home grumbling, being angry. All right. So in this picture, as you can see, when he comes back home and he reports to his wife, Muni's wife tells him that there's nothing else at home. You have to go hungry. All right. So maybe in the evening, perhaps she would be able to prepare. And he knows that it's no point, arguing with his wife because she has a very bad temper. So anyway, he knows that somehow his wife would prepare something for him by getting some kind of work from a rich family. So after being disappointed out here in the picture, as you see, Muni goes out with his goats with the hope to have something for dinner, expecting that as he returns back home, at least something will be there in page number 55, as it is mentioned here. So I'm not going everything in detail, but just picking up some points that would be important for you. And as we go with the sequence of the story, all right? So in page number 55 here, you would find him pondering about what the shopkeeper had mentioned, that perhaps you might look like at 70, and we start thinking about, oh, those are the times, those would be the days when, at 70, you would be waiting for God to take your life. And it has always been him and his wife all this time. So there's nothing much mentioned about children, and it's quite doubtful if they had children at all. Now, in this picture, as one of his daily, uh, you know, activity, he would always watch people, watch vehicles going passing by through the horse statue where he would always sit there. He would notice the vehicles and he would come back home and report his wife what kind of vehicle he had seen today or day after, or sorry, or yesterday. And so today, as it is given in the picture, he noticed a very different kind of vehicle and he was wondering how would he explain it to his wife. All right. And that is a vehicle which actually uh, is driven by a foreigner that comes to this village for the very first time as a tourist. Okay, so if you turn to page number 56, you will find last paragraph. He noticed now a new sort of vehicle coming down at full speed. It looked like both a motor car and a bus. That's what he thinks. It looked like a motor car and a bus. He used to be intrigued by the novelty of such spectacles, but of late work was going on at the source of the river on the mountain, and an assortment of people and traffic went past him. And he took it all casually and described to his wife later in the day everything he saw. But today, when he observed the yellow vehicle coming down, he was wondering how to describe it later to his wife when it sputtered and stopped in front of him. And it was none other than a rat-faced foreigner. So nowhere in this text it is given he's an American, but a rat-faced foreigner. He could be from any country, all right? And he was driving it. He gets down, stoops, looks, pokes under the vehicle, straightens himself up, looks at the dashboard, stares in Munni's direction and approaches him. And he comes to him and asks him about the gas station. And something which is very impractical about this man is he just stops by, and then he asks for the gas station, all right? And at the same time, he talks in the language English because he expects this Munni to understand English, because wherever he had been, most of the people had been able to converse with him in English somehow. So he thinks that maybe. And as he talks with him, he noticed the horse statue, and he suddenly looks at the clay horse statue and cries, "Marvelous." And he imagines probably this man could be the owner of the horse statue. All right. But here we have a very the confusion out here, because Munni thinks that this man could be a policeman because he wears a khaki uniform. And recently, and just before he left, uh, it was told, or he must have heard from people, that there was a murder somewhere in the nearby village. So he thinks that perhaps this man had come for some sort of inquiry. So the very first thing that comes to his mind is to run away. Now, as he was old enough, it was not possible for him to run away, right? Because this man would be able to capture him easily. So as much as he can, he tries to avoid by his talks, okay? But here we find that he cannot, this man, red-faced man foreigner, cannot understand Tamil, nor can he speak Tamil, only English. But, and as well as Munni, he also cannot speak English, but only Tamil. But they somehow tend to communicate with the gestures, all right? So here we find him giving him a cigarette, okay? And Munni takes it happily, okay? Because he has never smoked for a very, very long time. The last time he smoked was he took a cigarette on credit from the shopkeeper, all right? So he takes it as a courteous kind of a gesture, all right? Now, the next picture we find, yes, here, the foreigner offering him a cigarette at page number 57, all right? So in page number 59, here is also the miscommunication, okay? And he tells him that, oh, somehow that if he finds the thief, if he finds the murderer who had killed that man, he would, he would uh, catch him. He would dig him under the ground, and then he would inform him. So he tries to escape from this foreigner, thinking that him to be a policeman. Okay, so these are the miscommunication that goes on in the story. Now, this is the second time in page number 62 that the foreigner offers him cigarette for the second time. All right. If you turn to page number 62, Second paragraph says, the foreigner laughed heartily, took out another cigarette and offered it to Munni, who now smoked with ease, deciding to stay on if the fellow was going to be so good as to keep up his cigarette supply. The American now stood up on the pedestal in the attitude of a demonstrative lecturer and said, running his finger along some of the carved decorations around the horse neck, because he was actually intending to buy this horse statue. And he says, I could give a sales talk for this better than anyone else. This is a marvelous combination of yellow and indigo, though faded now. How do you people of this country achieve these flaming colors? But to his understanding, Muni's understanding, he understands as, oh, he is talking about the horse statue and he wants to know about this horse statue, a little bit of information. And this is when Muni explains to him that this horse statue is their guardian. It means death to our adversaries, means enemies. And he starts narrating that the end of Kali Yuga, that is the end of the, according to Hindu mythology, when the world will come to an end, it will be destroyed. The Redeemer will come in the shape of a horse called Kalki, that is a horse statue, and the horse will come to life, gallop, and trample down all bad men. So this is where he explains about the horse, not knowing that this foreigner was actually trying to buy this horse statue. So this is again the same picture wherein you would find Muni having at least a knowledge of this horse statue and explaining the importance of the horse in page number 62. All right. And here in this picture, he offers him 100 rupee note. Okay. But Muni misunderstands, thinking that he wants a change. So he tells him, oh, in page number 64, he says that the village hetman has lots of money. He's a money lender in page number 65. Okay, so page number 65, he says, ask our village hetman, who is also a money lender. He can change even a lakh of rupees in gold sovereigns if you prefer it that way. So he thinks that he is asking for change. Perhaps this foreigner is asking for a change. And since he do not have money, since he's very poor, he says, you can ask our village hetman to give you the changes. All right, he can give you in terms of coins, he can give you in terms of notes. Now, in this picture, there is something strange that Muni noticed. When finally the foreigner hands him the same 100 rupee note in changes, okay? Here it is stated, Munni thinks the foreigner wants to buy his two goats. Now, why does he think? This is because when the foreigner start caressing the goat, now the foreigner was only touching the goat or caressing the goat just as a sign of his interest, as it is given in page number 65, second paragraph. The foreigner followed his look and decided that it would be a sound policy to show an interest in the old man's pet. So he goes up casually to them and starts stroking the backs with every show of courteous attention. And that is when the realization starts to Munni that perhaps he wants to buy the goat, which he had been intending to sell for a very long time. And he was quite happy indeed, because he had really taken a lot of stress. He had really worked hard to feed his goat so that someday he could sell it to someone. All right. So in this picture, Munni leaves the foreigner. Okay. And as I've said earlier, in the beginning of the story, he tells him from beforehand that only after he leaves, that time maybe he can, he can put the goats on his vehicle. All right. He says in page number 66, in fourth paragraph, the old man says, the Muni says, this will be the first ride in a motor car. Carry them off after I get out of sight. Otherwise, they will never follow you, but only me, even if I'm traveling on the path to Yamaloka. All right. sarcastically he says that even if I go to hell, if they see me going, they would follow me there. All right. And so he laughs at his own joke and brought his palms together in a salute and turns around and leaves off because he has sold his goats. He has nothing to do anymore. So he is eager to go home and report this to his wife about the happy news. And the foreigner thinks perhaps he must have gone to fetch some help. All right. So accordingly, the sequence of the story follows with the course of action. And here we find that a bus arrives and he thinks perhaps Munni has been able to, find some kind of help. And here we find the foreigner being helped by a couple of men. Okay. He in fact gives them 5 rupees each and he requests them to give to draw some gas from the truck and help him to start his engine. All right. And that's how he leaves the place with the horse statue on top of his station wagon, on top of his motor vehicle. All right. Now, one thing that I have not mentioned is how did this foreigner had come to India was because uh, once, as he was talking with Muni, he had mentioned that he decided to come to India because once when he was working in his office, there was no electricity for 4 hours and he suffered a lot. So he had mentioned to his wife that perhaps we would go and visit India and see and observe the kind of life that they live. And that's when his wife decided and talked with the travel agency, and that's when they had landed in India. However, his wife stayed back in Srinagar and he himself alone took a tour up to south, and this is where he comes back. He stops by the statue, buys the horse statue for 100 rupees, and then takes it off on his vehicle. All right. And the rest of the details is given in this story. I won't have to explain. As you read, you would be able to understand, and you need to read as well. Okay. And here we find at the end of the story, Munni, who tells his wife how he got the money. All right. Because his wife was quite surprised. They have never seen such huge amount of money in their life. So that's why she inquires if he has stolen anything. And here Munni tells her in page number 67 that he sold his goats to a rat-faced man and he looked absolutely crazy to have them. He gave me all this money and carried them off in his motor car. But what happens right after when he just finishes saying that, they hear a bleating sound of the goat. That is how the goat makes sound, a bleating sound. And then they come out and see the two goats in front of their house. And Muni says, what is this? Here they are. What's the meaning of all this? And at the end of the story, Muni is seen to be cursing the goats and asking them, where is that man? Don't you know you are his? So all this happens because of the miscommunication. And that is a very humorous approach, as we find that the author tries to put in this story because of the innocence of this man who thinks that he has sold his goats, but he hasn't actually. The foreigner man buys the horse statue in exchange of the money. But at the end of the story, the understanding to Munni is that he has sold his goats, but his goats come back. So at the end of the story, he thinks that he must have betrayed, or he must have made a fool of himself, and he must have lied to his. He would be projected as a liar to his wife, but that is not it. Now it all happens just because of the miscommunication that has been pointed out in the theme of the story. All right. So I hope you have enjoyed the video. So please read the story entirely. It is very much important that you read the story from the text itself. Now this is just a secondary help for you to understand the story. Thank you for watching.